the day the sheriff knocked on my door. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, like he'd done this 100 times and hated it every single time. It was a bright Tuesday morning in a quiet suburb outside Seattle. The kind of morning where the sky is too blue for anything bad to happen. My porch light was still on from the night before. The roses by the steps were opening, like nothing in the world was wrong. And inside, my coffee was still steaming, untouched. Because my hands had started shaking the second my doorbell camera alert flashed on my phone. Motion detected. I glanced down, and my breath caught. A uniform, a badge, a marked vehicle at the curb, and a man standing on my porch with a folder tucked under one arm. The kind of folder that carries decisions you didn't get to make. He pressed the doorbell once, then waited, then pressed again. And when he spoke through the doorbell speaker, his voice was calm, practiced, almost gentle. "Ma'am, this is the sheriff's office. I need you to open the door." For half a second, I just stared at the screen like it was a mistake, like someone had clicked the wrong address. Because sheriffs don't come to your house unless something is already in motion, something already filed, something already signed. And I hadn't done anything. Not a crime, not a fight, not a missed payment, nothing. I swallowed, forced my fingers to move, and tapped the talk button without unlocking the door. "Yes?" My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. "Ma'am," he said again, softer, "I need to confirm your identity. Are you Lena Parker?" Hearing my name said by a sheriff, on my porch, made my stomach drop in a slow, heavy way. "Yes," I said. "What is this about?" He looked down at his folder, then back up at the camera. "I have documents for you, and I need to speak with you in person." "Documents?" My throat tightened. "What documents?" He didn't answer the question. He just repeated the line like he'd been trained to. "Ma'am, please open the door." I should have kept it chained. I should have called my attorney first. I should have taken a breath. But shock makes you do polite things. So I opened it, not wide, just enough to see his face. He was in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, short hair, weathered eyes, the kind of man who's seen too many families fall apart over paperwork. He held out the folder. "Lena Parker?" he asked again. "Yes." He nodded once, then handed me a stack of papers. "Ma'am, you've been served," he said. Served. That word hits different when it's said out loud, like a gavel, like a door locking. My hands went numb around the paper. "What is this?" I asked. He exhaled. "Notice of eviction," he said quietly. "Writ of restitution, and a hearing date." Eviction. My brain refused it. "Eviction from what?" I whispered, even though I was standing in my own doorway. He looked at the address printed on the top. "This property." I stared at him like he'd slapped me. "This is my house," I said, voice rising. "You have the wrong person." He didn't flinch. He just watched me the way the people watch a storm coming. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't decide it. I deliver it." I flipped the first page. My name was on it, my address. My heart hammered. Then I saw something that made my vision blur. Plaintiff, North Cascade Holdings, LLC. I'd never heard of them. I looked up. "What is North Cascade Holdings?" The sheriff's mouth tightened, like he didn't want to be the one to explain. "It's listed as the owner of record," he said. Owner of record. The words made my body go cold. "No," I said sharper. "That's not possible." He lifted his eyes toward mine. "Ma'am, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's filed." Filed. paperwork, a judge's stamp. I felt the porch tilt under my feet. "I need you to understand," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I bought this house before I was married. It's in my name." His expression didn't change, but his eyes softened slightly. "Then you need a lawyer," he said, "and you need one fast." I grabbed the papers tighter. "Wait," I said. "Who filed this?" He hesitated. "Your hearing date is listed," he said instead, tapping the page. "You need to show up." I stared at the bold date and time like it was a countdown. Then he added, almost under his breath, "And you should check county records today." Then he stepped back from my doorway, like he wanted distance from the whole thing. I stood there holding a stack of paper that felt heavier than bricks. The sheriff nodded once, like an apology he wasn't allowed to give. Then he walked down my steps and back to his vehicle. And just like that, the world went quiet again. Birds, a lawnmower somewhere far away, the soft click of my door settling back into place when I shut it. But inside me, nothing was quiet, because the sheriff didn't knock on my door to scare me. He knocked because someone had already moved the pieces, and I hadn't even seen the board. "My name is Lena Parker. I was 39 when this happened. I work in compliance for a healthcare network, the kind of job where you learn to trace patterns, follow policy, and never ignore the fine print. I'm the kind of woman who keeps folders labeled by year, who checks statements, who doesn't just sign things. That's what made it worse. Because if this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. I sat at my kitchen table with the documents spread out like crime scene photos. Eviction, writ, hearing, and that line, owner of record, North Cascade Holdings, LLC. My hands shook as I opened my laptop and went straight to the county records portal. I typed my address, hit search, and waited. For a second, nothing loaded, and I actually hoped the site had crashed. Then the results appeared, and my breath stopped. A deed had been recorded 3 weeks ago. A quitclaim deed, grantor, Lena Parker. Grantee, North Cascade Holdings, LLC. I stared at it until my eyes burned, because right there, in black and white, was my name listed as the person who transferred my house away. The document included a signature, my signature, but it wasn't mine. It was a version of it, a practiced curve, a rushed slant, like someone had watched me sign checks for years, then tried to imitate me in a hurry. I scrolled down, notary stamp, county recording number, all official, all terrifying. My chest tightened, because the system doesn't care what you meant. It cares what's recorded, and someone had recorded me out of my own life. I forced myself to breathe. One inhale, one exhale. Then I called the only person I trusted with my panic. Daniel Price, real estate attorney, litigator, the kind of man you call when paper becomes a weapon. He answered on the third ring. "This is Daniel." "Daniel," I said, voice thin. "A sheriff just served me eviction papers from my own house." There was a pause, not disbelief, calculation. "Email me everything," he said, "right now." "I already pulled the county record," I said. "There's a quitclaim deed. It says I transferred my house to an LLC I've never heard of." "Email that too," he said, "and do not leave your home." My throat tightened. "They're going to evict me, Daniel." "They're not," he said, firm. "Not if we move fast." Move fast. That phrase did something to me. It snapped me out of the fog, because I'd been standing in shock, and shock wastes time. So I moved. I scanned the sheriff's documents, saved the county record screenshots, printed copies. I emailed Daniel everything. Then I did something else. I checked my mailbox, because the sheriff said, check records today. And I suddenly realized, if they filed an eviction, there had to be notices, mail, warnings, something. But my mailbox held nothing but grocery flyers and junk. No official notices, no court letters, no certified mail slips, which meant someone had changed my mailing address or intercepted my mail, or both. My stomach turned. I logged into my mortgage account, and when the dashboard loaded, my pulse spiked. Mailing address, updated. Not my house. A P.O. box in a town 20 minutes away. My hands went cold. I didn't own a P.O. box. I never had. I clicked into account settings. It showed the address change request was submitted online 2 months ago. 2 months ago. My mind flashed to a memory like a warning light. My ex-husband, Mark. He'd asked me to sign something quick 2 months ago. Not a deed, not a mortgage. Just a form, he'd said. He was moving out then. Our separation had just started. He'd been calm, too calm, and I'd been tired. So tired. He'd sat at my kitchen counter smiling, pen in hand. Lena, he said, I just need your signature so I can handle a couple things while we're untangling stuff. It'll make it simpler. Simpler. That word again. It always shows up right before someone tries to take something from you. I remembered glancing at the paper. I remembered his hand covering the top portion, like he was protecting me from boring details. I remembered signing, because I didn't want to fight about one more thing. And I remembered thinking, he wouldn't use my signature against me, because he used to kiss my forehead at night, because we'd shared a bed, because he'd said, I love you, like it was steady. But love doesn't forge deeds, and the woman who loves you doesn't show up with a sheriff. I sat back in my chair, stomach churning. If Mark had my signature, if he had access, if he could change my mailing address, then he could do more than move boxes. He could move ownership. He could move debt. He could move my entire life into his name and smile while doing it. My phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. Check your front door. My heart slammed. I stood slowly, walked to the window, and pulled the curtain back a fraction. No sheriff. But there was something else. A man in a blazer standing on my porch, holding a for sale flyer. He wasn't alone. Behind him, parked at the curb, was a black SUV. And behind that SUV, a moving truck. Not as big as the last one I'd seen in nightmares, but big enough. Big enough to make my mouth go dry. I watched as the man in the blazer taped the flyer to my door. Then he stepped back and took a photo. Like he was documenting the fact that my house was now someone else's property. My stomach twisted. Because now I understood the real point of the sheriff. They didn't just want me scared. They wanted me out. Fast. Before I could stop the sale. Before I could freeze the title. Before I could expose the fraud. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel again. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. There's a realtor on my porch, I said, voice shaking. He just taped a for sale flyer to my door, and there's a moving truck outside. Do not open the door, Daniel said. Do not speak to anyone. I'm filing an emergency motion. And Lena, call the police, now. I already did once today, I whispered. Call again, he said. Tell them you're being harassed and there's an active fraudulent deed issue. Tell them you have an eviction notice tied to alleged fraudulent transfer. His voice was steady. It made mine steadier. I called 911. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I said, there are people outside my home attempting to pressure me to vacate property I own. I have reason to believe my title has been fraudulently transferred. A sheriff served me eviction papers earlier. I need an officer here. The dispatcher asked if anyone was trying to break in. Not yet. But the moving truck meant they were ready. Officers arrived within 10 minutes. 2 patrol cars. They spoke to the man in the blazer. He held up his phone, showing something. Probably listing details. Probably proof. He pointed toward the house like it was already his to sell. I watched from behind my blinds, heart pounding, as one officer looked up at my window. He knocked. I opened the door with the chain on. "Yes," I said. "Ma'am," he said. "The man says he's representing the owner of record and has documentation. He says you've been served an eviction." "I have," I said, "and it's fraud. I need you to tell them to leave." The officer's face tightened. "Do you have proof you own the home?" I swallowed. "Yes," I said, "but the county record was altered. I have the original deed and closing documents, and my attorney is filing an emergency motion right now." The officer nodded slowly, then turned back toward the porch. He spoke to the man again, more serious now, less friendly. Then he walked back to me. "Ma'am," he said, "for today, we can instruct them to leave if you're telling us you do not consent to their presence. But this is civil once paperwork is involved. You need your attorney to handle it." "I know," I said, voice tight. "Just make them leave." He nodded, and for the first time that day, I felt a small piece of control return. The man in the blazer peeled the flyer off my door with an annoyed motion and walked back to the SUV. The moving truck didn't move right away. It sat there idling like a threat. Then, slowly, it pulled away. But as it did, the driver leaned out the window and looked at my house like he was memorizing it, like he'd be back. When the officers left, my home felt too quiet again. I locked every lock, checked every window, turned on every camera setting. Then I sat at my kitchen table and stared at one question that kept repeating in my head like a pulse. Who is behind North Cascade Holdings? Because LLCs don't evict people. People do. And people hide behind LLCs when they don't want their names attached to what they're doing, Daniel called that evening. "I filed a LIS pendens," he said. "A what?" "A notice of pending litigation," he explained. "It attaches to your property in public record. It freezes the sale. No title company worth anything will touch it." My shoulders sagged with relief. "So they can't sell it," I whispered. "Not legally," Daniel said. "But Lena, we have a bigger problem." My stomach tightened again. "What?" He paused. "The eviction is already scheduled. The hearing is soon. And the deed, whoever recorded it, used a notary stamp. We need to challenge the notary." I stared at the papers. "How do we do that?" "We subpoena the notary log," he said. "We compare signatures. We file to void the deed. But we also need to figure out who funded that LLC, because this looks organized." Organized. That word chilled me, because it meant this wasn't some random scam. This was someone who knew my name, my address, my timing. Someone who knew how to weaponize the system. Someone who knew a sheriff's knock would shake me and maybe make me run. But I wasn't running. I was staying. The next morning, Daniel met me at my house. Not because he needed to, because he understood something most people don't. When your home becomes a battlefield, you stop feeling safe even in daylight. He walked through my living room with his briefcase and calm eyes, reviewing my documents like a doctor reading scans. Then he asked, "Do you have the separation paperwork from Mark?" My throat tightened. "Yes, bring it," he said. I pulled it out of a drawer. Daniel flipped through it, frowning. "Did Mark ever have access to your personal documents?" he asked. "Some," I admitted. "We were married. He knew where things were." Daniel nodded, then tapped the pages. "Did he ever pressure you to sign anything quick?" My stomach turned. "Yes," I whispered. 2 months ago. He said it was to handle things while we separated." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's likely your entry point," he said. Entry point. Like my life was a system and Mark had found the password. Then Daniel asked, "Has Mark been in contact recently?" I shook my head. "Not directly," I said. "But I got a text from an unknown number right before the realtor showed up." Daniel's eyes sharpened. "Show me." I handed him my phone. He read it and went still. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Lena, that number belongs to the sheriff's department." My breath stopped. "What?" Daniel pointed to a detail on the screen, an auto-signature line beneath the text. It wasn't just an unknown number. It was a system-generated notification line used by local government communications. I stared. "Why would the sheriff's department text me that?" Daniel's voice dropped. "They wouldn't," he said, "unless someone is spoofing it, or unless someone inside is involved." Inside. My mouth went dry, because now the story was bigger. Not just Mark, not just his family, not just an anonymous LLC. This involved someone who could grease paperwork through, someone who could make sure notices didn't reach me, someone who could turn a sheriff's knock into a weapon. I felt my skin go cold, and I realized the sheriff who served me yesterday looked tired. Not because he hated delivering paperwork, because he might have known something was wrong and couldn't say it. Daniel looked at me, serious. "We're going to request body cam footage," he said. "We're going to request service logs, and we're going to trace that LLC." "How?" I asked, voice thin. Daniel pulled out his phone. "I have an investigator," he said, "and I'm calling him now." He stepped outside to make the call. I sat alone at my table, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Normal sounds, but nothing felt normal. Because once the sheriff knocks, your life splits into before and after. And I was standing in the after, trying to keep my home from becoming someone else's plan. Daniel came back in with a face that told me the first answer had arrived. "My investigator is already looking," he said. "But Lena, I want you to think carefully. Who would benefit from you being removed quickly?" I swallowed. "Mark," I said immediately. Daniel nodded. "And who else?" My mind flashed to Mark's mother, Carol, always talking about assets, fairness, what's owed. My father-in-law, Ron, always acting like the world belonged to whoever had the right paperwork. Then I remembered a conversation from months ago. Mark had been on speakerphone in the kitchen, laughing, telling someone, "Don't worry. Once it's recorded, she can't do anything." Recorded. I hadn't thought about it then, but now it sounded like a confession. I looked at Daniel. "Mark's parents," I said. "They always wanted the house. They called it family property, even though it never was." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Okay," he said. "Then we treat this like a coordinated civil fraud case." Civil fraud. Those words sounded clinical. But what they meant was personal. It meant someone had tried to erase me from my own home with ink. Over the next week, my life became a war room. Daniel filed emergency motions. He contacted the county recorder. He demanded the notary's journal entry. He requested expedited hearing. And I lived in a state of alert that felt like my nerves were exposed. Every car slowing near my curb made my heart jump. Every doorbell sound, real or imagined, made my stomach twist. Then, 3 days before the eviction hearing, Daniel called. His voice was tight. "We got the notary log," he said. "And?" I whispered. "There's no entry," he said. "No record of you signing. No ID. No journal line." I closed my eyes. "So it's fake." "It's worse," Daniel said. "The notary stamp belongs to a notary who retired last year." Retired, meaning the stamp shouldn't even be active, meaning someone had access to an old stamp and used it like a skeleton key. Daniel exhaled. "This is fraud," he said. "Clear fraud. Now we push harder." The hearing came fast. A Wednesday morning. Gray sky, wet pavement, the kind of day that feels like the world is holding its breath. We walked into the courthouse together, me in a navy suit, Daniel carrying a thick binder, my stomach tight enough to feel like a fist. On the other side of the room sat a man I didn't recognize. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Beside him sat a woman, and when she turned slightly, my blood went cold. Carol, my ex-mother-in-law. She sat there like she belonged in the courtroom more than I did, chin lifted, hands folded, calm as a person, watching someone else's life collapse. Mark wasn't there, but Carol was, which meant Mark didn't want his face on this. He wanted his mother to do what she always did, make it look respectable. The man in the expensive suit stood when the judge entered. He introduced himself as counsel for North Cascade Holdings. Then he said the sentence that made my stomach twist. "Your Honor, the occupant is unlawfully withholding possession from the rightful owner. Occupant, not homeowner, not person. Occupant. Like I was a squatter in my own life." Daniel stood. "Your Honor," he said calm, "this deed is fraudulent. The notary journal contains no record. The notary stamp belongs to a retired notary, and we have filed a lis pendens and petition to void the deed." The judge's eyes narrowed slightly. The attorney for the LLC smiled like he'd expected that. "Allegations," he said smoothly, "but the deed is recorded." Recorded. That word again, like a magic spell. My hands clenched under the table. Then the judge looked directly at me. "Ms. Parker," she said, "do you deny signing this deed?" "Yes," I said, voice clear. "I never signed it. I never agreed to transfer my house." The judge nodded once. Then she looked at the LLC attorney. "Do you have any proof of the signing besides the recorded deed?" The man's smile twitched. He glanced toward Carol. Then he said, "The deed is notarized, Your Honor." The judge didn't look impressed. "I asked for proof," she repeated. And in that moment, I saw Carol's eyes flick, just once, toward the door, like she was calculating an exit. Daniel slid a document forward. "Your Honor, we also have evidence of mail diversion," he said. "Mortgage account mailing address changed without Ms. Parker's authorization. Notices rerouted to a P.O. box." The judge's gaze sharpened. The LLC attorney shifted. Then Daniel did the thing that changed the air in the room. He said, "Your Honor, we request the court pause the eviction and refer this matter to the county prosecutor for suspected deed fraud." Prosecutor. That word landed like thunder, because now this wasn't just paperwork, it was crime. The judge sat back, studying the documents. Silence stretched. Then she said, "Eviction is stayed pending investigation." Hearing continued. Parties are ordered to preserve all records. Stayed, meaning paused, meaning I wasn't being forced out today. My lungs expanded like I'd been underwater. Carol didn't move, but her mouth tightened. The LLC attorney's smile vanished, and as the judge stood to leave, I felt something shift. The power. It wasn't mine yet, but it was moving. Outside the courtroom, Daniel leaned toward me. "Don't relax," he murmured. "Now they'll try something else." I swallowed. "What else?" Daniel's eyes were hard. "Now they'll try to scare you back into silence." And he was right, because that night, the sheriff knocked again. But this time, it wasn't on my front door. It was on the side gate, behind my house. At 10:30 p.m., I woke up to my camera alert, night vision, a flashlight beam, a uniform silhouette. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and when the voice came through the outdoor speaker, it wasn't tired. It was cold. "Ms. Parker," the voice said, "open the gate. We need to speak with you." My blood turned to ice. Because sheriffs don't come at 10:30 at night unless someone is pushing them. Unless someone wants me afraid. Unless someone wants me to open a door when I'm half asleep. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I called 911 again, whispering so my voice wouldn't shake too loud. And while I waited, staring at the screen, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The uniform wasn't quite right. The badge placement, the angle of the shoulder patch. It looked close, but not exact, like a costume bought to pass at a glance. My breath caught, because if that wasn't real law enforcement, then this wasn't just fraud. This was intimidation. And suddenly, I understood the truth. The day the sheriff knocked on my door wasn't the beginning. It was the moment someone decided the system was the weapon, and I was the target. And if I wanted to keep my house, I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting for proof, for truth, for my name. And I was about to learn exactly how far some people will go when they think a home is worth more than a human being. I kept my bedroom lights off. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand, watching the grainy night vision feed like it was a live wire. The figure by my side gate lifted the flashlight again, sweeping it across the latch. Slow, deliberate. Like he wanted me to know he could see the locks. Then his voice came through again. "Ms. Parker, open the gate." No warmth, no tired patience, just command. I didn't answer. I didn't tap the talk button. Because the moment you speak, you confirm you're inside. And whoever was out there didn't need confirmation. They needed compliance. My fingers shook as I dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, I kept my voice low and steady, the way Daniel had taught me. "Someone is outside my house, claiming to be sheriff's office," I said. "It's late. They are at my side gate. I believe they may be impersonating law enforcement. I have an active title fraud case, and an eviction stayed in court today." There was a pause. "Are they trying to enter the home?" the dispatcher asked. "They're testing my gate," I whispered, "and they are ordering me to open it." "Stay inside," she said immediately. "Do not open anything. Officers are being dispatched." My heart slammed once, hard. On the camera, the man shifted his weight like he could feel time tightening. He stepped closer to the gate, flashlight beam dancing, and for a moment his face angled toward the camera. The night vision caught it, and something in my stomach dropped in a way that wasn't fear anymore. It was recognition. Not a full face, not a clear identity, just a shape, a build, a posture. the way he held himself like he owned the space. I'd seen that posture before, in my driveway, months ago. Ron Parker, my father-in-law, construction man posture, hands on hips confidence, a man who thought rules were for other people as long as he had paperwork. My breath caught. But then he turned away again, and the shadow swallowed him. I told myself I was imagining it, because the brain does that in the dark. It reaches for the most obvious villain. But even if it wasn't Ron, it was someone who wanted me to feel like the sheriff could show up anytime and make me open a door. And that meant one thing. Someone was trying to crack my nerves, not my locks, my nerves. Sirens came fast this time. 2 patrol cars pulled up, lights washing the street in blue and red. The figure at the gate froze, then moved, not running, backing away like he'd done nothing wrong, like he belonged. One of the officers walked into my side yard with a flashlight. The other stayed out front. I went downstairs, keeping every light off, and opened my front door with the chain on just enough to speak. The officer's face was young, focused. "Ma'am," he said, "where did you see him?" "Side gate," I said. "Backyard camera." "Did you speak to him?" "No." "Good," he said. He stepped back, speaking into his radio. The other officer returned from the side yard a minute later, face tight. "Gates secure," he said. "No one back there now." I swallowed, voice thin. He said he was sheriff's office. The young officer's eyes narrowed. "We can verify if any deputies were dispatched," he said. He asked for my name and address. Then he stepped aside and made a call. I stood in my doorway, holding my breath. The street looked normal again. Quiet, sleepy, suburban. But the night didn't feel normal. It felt staged, like someone had placed fear in my yard and expected it to grow. The officer returned. "There was no deputy dispatched to your address," he said. My blood went cold. So, he wasn't real. The officer's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "And impersonating law enforcement is serious. Do you have footage?" "Yes," I said quickly. "Multiple cameras." "Save it," he said. "We'll take a report." He asked me to email the department or bring the footage in. I nodded. And when they left, the world got quiet again. But now the quiet had a new shape. Certainty. Someone was playing a dangerous game. And they weren't just hiding behind an LLC anymore. They were willing to dress up like authority. They were willing to show up at night. They were willing to see if I'd open a gate, because the word sheriff still carries power. I didn't sleep after that. I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, with the camera feed paused on the clearest frame I had. The figure's shoulder, the fake patch, the angle of the cap. Not enough to identify, but enough to prove intent. When the sun finally rose, I called Daniel. He answered immediately, like he could hear the tension in my breathing. "They came last night," I said. "A fake sheriff, side gate, 10:30. Police confirmed no deputy was dispatched." There was a pause. Then Daniel's voice went low. "Okay," he said. "This just moved from civil to criminal pressure." "What do I do?" I asked. "You do exactly what you're doing," he said. "You document, you report, and you stop thinking this is only about the house." My stomach tightened. "What else is it about?" Daniel exhaled. "Control," he said, "and what they're hiding." That day, Daniel's investigator, his name was Miguel, met me at a coffee shop near the courthouse. Miguel didn't look like a movie detective. No trench coat, no dramatic vibe. He looked like a man who'd learned to read people by watching what they don't say. He slid into the booth across from me, opened a notebook, and said, Tell me everything from the sheriff's first visit. So I did. The eviction papers, the LLC, Carol in court, the realtor, the moving truck, the fake deputy at night. Miguel listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. Do you know anyone who works in the sheriff's office? I frowned. No, I said. Not personally. Miguel nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Then we're going to look at who benefits from this timing, because eviction paperwork doesn't move this fast unless someone knows how to push it. Push it. Just like Mark always did when he wanted something. Miguel asked for Mark's full name. Carol's, Ron's. Then he asked for one more name that made my throat tighten. Mark's best friend, he said. The one he talks to when he's planning. I hesitated because I hadn't wanted to say it out loud, but it was there in my memory. A man named Travis Collins, Mark's buddy from college. The guy who always showed up at barbecues with a fake laugh and a real interest in what people owned. Travis who worked in property management. Travis who once joked, paper beats people every time. I told Miguel the name. Miguel's eyes sharpened. Okay, he said, writing it down. That's a lead. The next 48 hours moved like a train I couldn't get off. Daniel filed a motion to compel discovery from North Cascade Holdings, meaning the LLC had to reveal who controlled it. They tried to resist. They tried to stall. But the judge, same woman, tired eyes, was not in the mood for games. You want to remove someone from their home, she said in a dry voice. Then you will disclose who you are. A deadline was set, and that's when the calls started again. Not from Mark, not from Carol, from unknown. The first call was a man with a calm voice. Ms. Parker, he said, you're making a mistake. I didn't speak. He continued anyway. You can stop this. Walk away. Drop the list pendants. Let the sale happen. You'll be compensated. Compensated. My stomach turned. Who is this? I asked. He chuckled softly. Someone trying to help you, he said. You don't want to fight the wrong people. My fingers tightened around the phone. I'm not fighting people, I said. I'm fighting fraud. Silence. Then his voice went colder. You don't know what fraud is until it's turned on you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Daniel told me to save the call log and forward it. Every contact is a thread, he said, and threads lead to names. On the third day, Miguel called. His voice held something sharp. Lena, he said, I found North Cascade Holdings. My pulse spiked. Who are they? Miguel exhaled. They were formed 3 months ago, he said. Registered agent is a corporate service in Olympia. Pretty standard for hiding identities, but what? Miguel paused. But the mailing address tied to their formation papers matches a business suite used by Travis Collins. My throat went tight. Mark's friend. Yeah, Miguel said. And that's not all. I gripped the edge of my counter. What else? Miguel's voice went low. Travis has a cousin, he said. Works in the sheriff's civil division. Handles service scheduling. My skin went cold. Inside. There it was. Inside. The fake text line, the fast paperwork, the timing. Someone had been greasing the system. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to move faster than it should. I sat down hard. So Mark, Travis, and someone in the sheriff's office, and my in-laws. Miguel didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said, this looks coordinated. Coordinated. I closed my eyes, because coordinated is what criminals call efficient. That night, Daniel called with his own update. North Cascade's attorney filed their disclosure, he said. And? I whispered. Daniel's voice hardened. The controlling member listed is Travis Collins. My throat tightened. Of course it was. But what I didn't expect was what Daniel said next. And Lena, there's a second member listed. I held my breath. Who? Daniel paused. Then, Carol Parker, my ex-mother-in-law. I went still. The kitchen felt too bright, too quiet, like the house itself was listening. Carol Parker was not just supporting Mark. She was involved, on paper, in an LLC that claimed to own my home. My home. My hands trembled. She put her name on it, I whispered. Yes, Daniel said, which means she's either very confident or very desperate. Desperate. That meant they didn't just want the house. They needed it. They needed it sold. They needed cash. Daniel's voice tightened. Lena, we're going to request the LLC's bank records, and we're going to request the closing package they used to record that deed. Closing package. Because deeds don't appear out of thin air. They get signed, notarized, recorded, and somewhere in that chain, there are hands, fingerprints, emails, money. The next week felt like living inside a tightened fist. I went to work, but my brain stayed at home. I slept with my phone on my pillow like it was oxygen. I stopped listening to music because music made me feel. And I didn't want to feel. I wanted to stay sharp. Then, on Friday afternoon, Miguel sent me a photo. It wasn't of a person. It was of a moving truck, parked behind a warehouse, with a logo on the side, a local moving company. Miguel wrote one line beneath it. Owner is Ron Parker's cousin. My stomach dropped. The moving truck hadn't been random. It had been family. Everything had been family. Not love, family. Leverage, family. The kind of family that treats people like pieces. That evening, I got an email from Daniel. Subject: bank records obtained. Urgent. I opened it. My eyes scanned the numbers, and then my breath stopped. North Cascade Holdings had received a transfer. A large one. 2 days before the quitclaim deed was recorded. From a construction account. Ron's construction account. Not Mark. Ron. My father-in-law had funded the LLC that stole my home. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Because now the moving truck made sense. The sheriff made sense. Carol sitting in court made sense. This wasn't Mark acting alone. This was the Parker family, building a theft like they built a deck. Measure, cut, nail it in, smile. I called Daniel immediately. Can we use this? I asked, voice shaking. Oh, we're going to use it, Daniel said, because now we have motive and money. And what about the sheriff's office connection? I asked. Daniel's voice went hard. Miguel is handing that to the prosecutor's investigator, he said. And Lena, I need you ready for blowback. Blowback, meaning they'd lash out, meaning the moment a scheme is exposed, people either run or attack, and the Parkers had never been the running type. They were the type who showed up with trucks. Saturday morning, my doorbell camera alerted again. Not a uniform, not a realtor. Carol, alone. Standing on my porch in a cream coat like she was going to a brunch. She didn't ring. She just stood there, staring at my door like she could will it open. Then she leaned toward the camera and spoke in a voice so calm it made my skin crawl. Lena, she said, we need to talk like adults. I didn't answer. She continued. You've made this unpleasant. You're embarrassing our family. Our family. Not your safety. Not your home. Not your life. Embarrassing. That house, she said, still calm, was never meant to be just yours. I felt my jaw tighten. She leaned closer. Mark was married to you. she said. That makes it family, and family property should stay with family. There it was, the logic. Marriage equals access. Access equals entitlement. Entitlement equals theft. I pressed the talk button. Leave, I said. Her eyes lifted toward the doorbell camera. She smiled slightly. Or what? She asked. You'll call the sheriff? My blood went cold because she wasn't asking like she didn't care. She was asking like she knew what could be arranged. I kept my voice steady. I already did, I said, and the prosecutor is looking at this. For the first time, her smile slipped, just a fraction. It was subtle, but it was real. You don't want to do that, she said, softer. I didn't want a sheriff at my door, I said, but you did that anyway. Carol stared at the camera. Then she said something that told me exactly who she was. This is business, she said. Don't make it personal. Business, my home, my safety, my name, business. I laughed once. You made it personal when you forged my signature, I said. Her face tightened. Then she straightened and walked off my porch like she still owned dignity. But I could feel the shift. She was scared. Because when people like Carol lose control, they don't cry. They calculate. And calculation was exactly what showed up next. That Monday, my workplace HR manager called me into an office. My stomach dropped the moment I saw her face. Lena, she said gently, we received an anonymous report about you. Report. My skin went cold. What kind of report? She slid a printed email across the desk. It accused me of stealing patient data, of misusing access, of compliance violations. It was written in formal language, like someone who understood how to hit my professional identity. My breath turned sharp. It's false, I said immediately. It's retaliation. HR nodded slowly. We believed it might be, she said. But we have to review. Of course they did. That's how systems work. Mark couldn't get me out of my house fast enough, so they tried to get me out of my job. Because if you lose your job, you lose stability. And if you lose stability, you become easier to move. I called Daniel as soon as I walked out. They're targeting my job, I said. Daniel's voice went colder. Good, he said. I blinked. Good? It proves intent to harass, he said. And it shows pattern. Forward the email. We're adding it. That night, Miguel texted me. Prosecutor opened an investigation. My throat tightened. Investigation? Real? Official? Not just me screaming into a void. Then, 2 days later, Daniel called with the sentence that made my knees weak. They arrested Travis Collins. What? I whispered. Fraud-related charges, Daniel said, and impersonation, and possibly conspiracy. I sat down hard. My mouth was dry. What about Carol? Daniel paused. They questioned her, he said. And Lena? She's singing. Singing. Meaning, talking. Meaning. The moment pressure hit, Carol started saving herself. Because people like Carol don't love loyalty. They love advantage. And advantage changes fast when handcuffs appear. The next week, the court hearing resumed. This time, Carol wasn't sitting behind the LLC attorney like she belonged. She sat with her own lawyer. And she didn't look polished. She looked small. Mark finally showed up too. Gray suit, tight jaw. But his eyes weren't confident now. They were hunted. The judge entered, looked at the file, looked at us. Then she spoke in a voice that carried no patience. This court has received notice of a criminal investigation into alleged deed fraud, she said. And in light of that, the court orders immediate dismissal of eviction proceedings. Dismissal. My lungs expanded so hard it felt like a sob. Then the judge continued. The deed transfer is under review, and until resolved, Ms. Parker retains possession. Possession. My house, my home, mine. Mark's attorney started to speak. The judge cut him off with a look. Counsel, she said, sit. Silence filled the room. Mark stared at the table like it might open up and swallow him. Carol stared forward, hands clasped, pretending she'd always been innocent. But I had the bank transfer. I had the recordings. I had the pattern. And now, so did the prosecutor. After the hearing, Mark tried to approach me in the hallway. Lena? Daniel stepped between us. Through counsel, he said. Mark's mouth tightened. I never wanted it to go this far, he hissed. I looked at him, really looked, and I realized something that made my chest feel hollow. He didn't mean he was sorry. He meant he didn't want consequences. You wanted my house, I said quietly. His eyes flicked. You had everything, he snapped, and you acted like I should be grateful for scraps. Scraps. My house, my life, my safety. He leaned closer like he wanted to intimidate me with proximity. But the courthouse hallway had cameras, and for once, I was grateful for cameras. Daniel's voice was calm. Walk away, he said, or we'll file for additional protective orders. Mark stared at him, then at me. Then he backed off. Not because he respected me, because the system finally saw him. A month later, the county recorder officially voided the fraudulent deed. The title was corrected. North Cascade Holdings was flagged. The Ellis pendants remained until everything was fully cleared, and the sheriff's office announced internal discipline, quietly, without headlines. Miguel told me one employee had been placed on leave. The cousin, the one who scheduled civil service, the one who made the sheriff knock happen at the perfect time. And suddenly, the tired sheriff's face made sense again. He might have known. He might have suspected. He might have hated being the delivery man for someone else's corruption. And I thought about how that first knock could have made me run, could have made me pack a bag, leave the house empty, hand them the narrative. But I didn't. I stayed, because sometimes staying is the bravest thing you do. The divorce finalized 3 months later. Mark got nothing from the house. No payout, no equity share, no victory story. The judge ordered him to pay legal fees tied to the fraudulent filings. And when Mark's attorney tried one last argument about contribution, the judge said something that felt like the universe finally speaking my language. Contribution does not entitle theft, she said. Mark's face drained. Carol didn't look at him, because Carol was already shifting blame, already protecting herself, already preparing to say she was misled. But the bank record didn't care about her excuses. Money tells the truth. After everything, I replaced every lock again. Not because I was paranoid, because the old locks belonged to an old life, a life where I thought marriage meant safety. Now I understood something sharper. Safety is built by boundaries, by documentation, by refusing to open the door when fear knocks. The day the sheriff knocked on my door, I thought the system had turned against me. I thought I was about to lose my home because someone filed the right paper. But what I learned, the hard way, is this. The system can be used as a weapon, but it can also be used as a shield. The difference is whether you freeze or you move, whether you panic or you document, whether you try to be nice or you tell the truth before someone else lies louder. Because that's what Mark and his family counted on. They counted on my embarrassment. They counted on my silence. They counted on me thinking, This is too big. I can't fight it. But I did fight it, and when I walk past my front door now, I still see that first moment in my head. The sheriff on my porch, folder in his hand, eyes tired. And I don't feel fear. I feel a strange kind of gratitude. Because that knock taught me something I never want to forget. If someone can take your home with paperwork, then you protect it with paperwork. You protect it with proof. You protect it by refusing to let anyone, family, spouse, sheriff badge, or smiling realtor, rush you into giving up what you built. So if the day ever comes when authority shows up at your door with a folder, take a breath. Don't open your life out of shock. Ask questions. Demand identification. Call your lawyer. Check your records. Because the moment you do, the people behind the knock start to panic. And when they panic, they make mistakes. That's how I kept my home. Not by being louder, not by being meaner, by being clearer, by staying calm long enough to see the pattern, and by remembering one truth that saved me. A knock is not a verdict. It's just a move, and you're allowed to make your own move next.